My name is Isaac. I am 28 years old, and I never thought moving back home would tear my family apart. When my apartment flooded, returning to my childhood bedroom seemed simple enough. Until my sister Amanda announced her visit with her 9-year-old daughter Lily. Suddenly my room was no longer mine. Sleep in the garage, my dad suggested, as if I were less important than my niece. That night I called my grandfather Walter. His arrival the next day changed everything. Before I tell you how my grandfather turned the tables on my family, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Also, hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever had to stand up for yourself against your own family. I have always been the middle ground in my family. Not the favorite, not the troublemaker, just somewhere in between. At 28, I had built a decent life for myself, as a software developer, at a tech company in the city. My apartment was small but comfortable, my job challenging but rewarding. I had escaped the shadow of being the overlooked middle child, or so I thought. Growing up, I was sandwiched between my older sister Amanda and my younger brother Michael, who moved out west for college and rarely visits. Amanda was always the golden child. Straight. As cheerleading captain, homecoming queen, the works. Meanwhile, I was average in academics, preferred computers to sports, and kept to myself. My parents, Robert and Patricia, never said it out loud, but their actions spoke volumes. Amanda got a car for her 16th birthday. I got driving lessons and had to save up for my own vehicle. When college acceptance letters came, my parents threw a party for Amanda getting into an Ivy League school. My acceptance to a solid state university was acknowledged with a simple good job at dinner. Do not get me wrong, my parents loved me. They attended my computer science competitions and graduation. They helped with college tuition. But there was always a difference in enthusiasm, in pride, in attention. And now that same pattern had extended to the next generation. My niece Lily, Amanda's daughter, had become the new center of the family universe. When my apartment building experienced severe flooding due to a burst pipe on the 5th floor, I found myself temporarily homeless. The building management estimated repairs would take at least a month. With housing costs in the city being astronomical, staying in a hotel for that long would drain my savings. So, reluctantly, I called my parents. "Of course you can stay here," my mother said warmly. "Your old room is always there for you." That first week back home was surprisingly pleasant. Mom cooked my favorite meals. Dad and I watched basketball games in the evening, and I set up a temporary workspace in my old bedroom. The room itself was largely unchanged from when I left for college. Blue walls, twin bed desk by the window, and shelves filled with programming books and old science fair trophies. Mom had converted part of it into a sewing area, but she quickly relocated her machine to make space for my work setup. My parents seemed genuinely happy to have me home, asking about my job and friends in the city, but small hints of the old patterns emerged. When I mentioned a promotion, I was hoping for, my mother quickly pivoted the conversation to Amanda's recent award at her marketing firm. When I showed them an app I had developed in my spare time, my father nodded politely, before launching into a 20-minute monologue about how Lily had won her school spelling bee. I noticed something else too. While my room had been preserved as mine, in theory it was clear it had become flexible space in the family mind. Mom occasionally referred to it as the guest room, despite my childhood photos still hanging on the walls. Dad suggested I could bunk with Michael if my younger brother ever visited, despite the fact that Michael had his own room as well. It was subtle, but the message was clear. My place in the house, like my place in the family, was conditional. During those first days back, memories of childhood resurfaced. The time Amanda got a new laptop for getting straight, as while I received a calculator for improving my math grade from a C to a B+. The family vacations, where Amanda got to choose the destinations. The way my achievements were acknowledged, while hers were celebrated. Even Michael, despite being the youngest, seemed to get more attention than I did, perhaps because his athletic abilities matched our father's interests better than my technical inclinations. Still, I was an adult now. This was temporary. I could handle a few weeks of being back in the old family dynamic. Or so I thought, until Amanda called with her wonderful news. It happened at dinner on my 8th day back home. We were having pot roast, my dad's favorite, and discussing ordinary things. Neighborhood gossip, the upcoming weather, my work projects. The landline rang, and my mother answered with her usual cheerful greeting. Her face immediately lit up. Amanda. What a lovely surprise. She put the phone on speaker so we could all hear. You are on speaker, honey. Your father and Isaac are here too. Hi, Mom, Dad. Amanda's voice filled the dining room. I have exciting news. Lily and I are coming to visit next week, for 2 whole weeks. My parents erupted in excitement. That is wonderful news, my mother exclaimed. We have not seen our precious granddaughter in months. When do you arrive? My father asked, already reaching for his phone, presumably to mark the date on his calendar. Tuesday afternoon, Amanda replied. Lily is so excited to see everyone. She has been talking about spending time with Grandma and Grandpa non-stop. As my parents continued their enthusiastic conversation with Amanda, discussing Lily's favorite foods and activities they could plan, I sat quietly eating my dinner. 2 weeks was a significant visit, but surely it would not affect my situation. After all, Amanda had her own room, and Lily could stay there with her, or perhaps in Michael's empty room. After ending the call, my mother turned to me with a strange expression, part apologetic, part expectant. Isaac, we need to discuss the sleeping arrangements for when Amanda and Lily arrive. I nodded, still chewing a piece of pot roast. I assume Lily will stay in Amanda's room. Or Michael's. My father cleared his throat. Well, son, we were thinking that since Amanda is a grown woman, she needs her privacy. And Michael's room has become your mother's crafting space. A knot formed in my stomach as I began to see where this was heading. So, what are you suggesting? We think it would be best if Lily took your room, my mother said softly. She is 9 now, and she needs her own space too. You know how important it is for children to have stability and comfort, especially when visiting. I placed my fork down slowly. And where exactly am I supposed to sleep for those 2 weeks? I am working remotely. Remember, I need my computer set up, my desk space. You can set up temporarily in the living room, my father suggested, as if it were the most reasonable solution in the world. Or the basement. The basement has a leak when it rains, I reminded him. And the living room is right by the kitchen. Everyone would be walking through my workspace all day. It is just for 2 weeks, Isaac, my mother added her tone, suggesting I was being difficult. Family has to make sacrifices sometimes. I am family too, I pointed out. And I am already making sacrifices by being displaced from my apartment. I need my workspace to do my job. My father's expression hardened. Your sister and niece live 3 states away. We rarely get to see them. You live just 40 minutes from here when your apartment is not flooded. That is not the point, I argued, feeling my frustration rise. I am currently living here, working here. I need a proper space to do that. You do not even live here anymore, my mother said inadvertently, revealing how they truly viewed my presence. This is just temporary for you. So is Amanda's visit, I countered. The tension at the dinner table was escalating quickly. My father's face had turned red. Never a good sign, and my mother was fidgeting with her napkin, a nervous habit she had when conflict arose. Look, I tried again, aiming for a reasonable tone. I understand wanting Lily to be comfortable, but I literally need my room for work purposes. Could Lily not stay in Amanda's room? They could have a sleepover kind of arrangement. Kids love that sort of thing. Amanda needs her own space, my father insisted. And Lily is at an age where she needs privacy too. And I do not, I asked incredulously. You are a grown man, my father said dismissively. You should be flexible. The double standard was breathtaking. Amanda, 2 years older than me, needed privacy. Lily at 9 needed her own room. But I somehow was expected to surrender my space without complaint. This is exactly like it has always been, I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. Amanda gets priority. Always has, always will. My father slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware jump. That is enough. If you want to stay here, then sleep in the garage. We have raised you better than to be this selfish. Your sister and niece are coming, and we are going to make them comfortable. End of discussion. The garage. He actually suggested I sleep in the garage. The uninsulated, dusty, spider-infested garage where the temperature fluctuated wildly with the weather. Where the concrete floor was stained with oil, and the air smelled of lawn fertilizer and gasoline. Where there was no internet connection for my work. I looked to my mother, hoping for some support, but she averted her eyes tacitly, siding with my father, as she always did, when it came to conflicts involving Amanda. The garage could be fixed up, she offered weakly. We could put down some carpeting, maybe move a space heater out there. I stared at my half-eaten dinner, appetite gone. Across the table, I could see the smug satisfaction on my father's face. He thought he had won, that I would back down as I always had in the past. The familiar feeling of being less valued, less important than my sister washed over me. It was a feeling I thought I had left behind when I moved out, built my own life, became independent. Yet here it was again, as powerful as ever. I need some air, I said, standing up abruptly and leaving the table. As I walked away, I heard my mother call after me. Isaac, please be reasonable. But what they were asking was not reasonable. It never had been. I retreated to my bedroom, the room that apparently was not really mine anymore, and closed the door harder than necessary. My hands were shaking with anger and hurt as I sat on the edge of my bed, the same bed I had slept in throughout my childhood and teenage years. The walls around me were a timeline of my life science fair ribbons. From middle school, a high school graduation photo posters of tech pioneers I had admired as a teenager. This room represented not just my past but my current refuge during a difficult situation. And now, like so many other things throughout my life, it was being taken away to benefit Amanda and her daughter. I began pulling out my suitcase, not even sure what my plan was. Find a hotel, crash on a friend's couch. The options were limited and expensive. I had already calculated that a month in even a budget hotel would strain my finances considerably. Friends in the area all had their own space constraints. Small apartments, roommates, partners. Staying with them for a night or two was one thing, but 2 weeks was asking a lot. As I haphazardly threw clothes into the suitcase, memories flooded back. Amanda's 16th birthday, when my parents surprised her with a car. My 16th birthday, 6 months later, when I received new computer parts I had saved up for and specifically requested, but still nothing compared to a vehicle. Christmas mornings, when Amanda's pile of gifts was noticeably larger than mine. Parent-teacher conferences where my solid B's were acknowledged with nods, while Amanda's A's received effusive praise. Each memory stoked my anger further, but beneath the anger was a deeper, more painful emotion, the feeling of simply not mattering as much, of being the afterthought child, the backup, the spare. I had spent years in therapy unpacking these feelings, learning to validate my own worth independent of my family's recognition. I had built a life I was proud of, with friends who valued me and colleagues who respected my skills. Yet somehow, 8 days back in my parents' house had reduced me to that insecure, overlooked teenager again. A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Isaac, my mother's voice. Can we talk? I considered ignoring her, but finally sighed and said, Come in. She entered cautiously, eyeing the open suitcase on my bed. What are you doing? What does it look like? I am figuring out my options. Do not be dramatic, she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. There is no need to leave. Sleep in the garage, I quoted flatly. That was Dad's suggestion. Like I am some piece of furniture you can just put in storage. He did not mean it like that, she defended weakly. He was just frustrated. No, he meant exactly that. I am less important than Amanda and Lily. Always have been. That is not true, she protested, but without much conviction. We love all our children equally. Equal love, unequal treatment, I replied. It has been the family pattern my entire life. My mother sighed, placing her hand on mine. Isaac, it is just for 2 weeks. Family has to make sacrifices sometimes. Funny how I am always the one expected to make the sacrifices, I noted. When has Amanda ever had to give up anything for me? That is not fair. Your sister has made plenty of sacrifices. Name one, I challenged. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. This is not about keeping score. Lily is just a child. She needs stability and comfort when she visits. You are an adult. You can adapt more easily. There it was again, the assumption that my needs were simply less important, that I should step aside, make way, accommodate, always. I am in the middle of an important project at work. I explained for what felt like the 100th time. I need my computer set up, my desk space. I need privacy for video calls with clients. I need reliable internet. None of that is available in the garage or the living room. We could help you set up a workspace. That is not the point, I interrupted, my frustration boiling over. The point is that you and Dad automatically assumed I would just give up my space. You did not ask, you told. You did not consider alternatives. You just decided that, as usual, what Amanda wants, Amanda gets. My mother's expression hardened slightly. I think you are being selfish. Lily is 9 years old. And I am 28, working a full-time job that pays my bills and builds my career. Why does her age make her needs more valid than mine? Because that is how family works, she insisted. The adults take care of the children. We make sacrifices for them. I am not Lily's parent, I pointed out. That responsibility falls to Amanda. And you and Dad if you choose, not me. We went back and forth like this for several minutes, reaching no resolution. Every argument I made was deflected with appeals to family duty, Lily's age, or the temporary nature of the arrangement. It was clear my mother had no intention of reconsidering the decision or standing up to my father or sister on my behalf. When she finally left, I sat in silence for a long time, weighing my options. None of them were good. As much as I hated to admit it financially, I needed to stay here until my apartment was repaired. Hotels were too expensive for a month-long stay. Friends' couches were too temporary. I was stuck. My phone rang, pulling me from my thoughts. The screen showed Grandpa Walter, my father's father. Grandpa Walter had always been a voice of reason in family conflicts, though he lived an hour away and visited infrequently these days due to his age. "Hello," I answered, trying to keep the tension from my voice. "Isaac, how is my favorite grandson?" His booming voice brought an involuntary smile to my face. "I am okay, Grandpa. How are you?" "Cannot complain. These old bones still get me where I need to go. How is life back at your parents' place? Your mom mentioned your apartment flooding when I called last week." I hesitated, not wanting to drag him into family drama. But something in his tone, genuine interest, real concern, broke through my resistance. "Actually, things are a bit tense right now," I admitted. "Oh, what is going on?" I explained the situation. Amanda and Lily's upcoming visit, my parents' insistence that I give up my room, the garage suggestion, the whole conflict. "I see," he said when I finished, his voice thoughtful. "And you need the room for your work." "Yes. I am in the middle of a big project. I need my computer set up, privacy for calls, all of that." "And Amanda and Lily are coming for 2 weeks, you said?" "Yes." There was a pause, then he said firmly, "I think I will stop by tomorrow." "Grandpa, you do not need to get involved." "Nonsense," he cut me off. "I have been meaning to visit anyway. It has been too long since I have seen all of you." I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Grandpa Walter had always been fair, but his arrival would likely escalate the situation. Still, it felt good to have someone on my side for once. "Thanks, Grandpa," I said quietly. "Get some rest, Isaac. I will see you tomorrow afternoon." After hanging up, I unpacked my hastily filled suitcase and tried to focus on work. But concentration was impossible, with the knot of tension in my stomach. Tomorrow would bring either resolution or more conflict. Either way, things were about to change. Morning arrived with uncomfortable silence hanging over the breakfast table. My father buried himself in his newspaper. My mother busied herself with breakfast preparations, and I focused on my coffee, each of us avoiding the unresolved tension from the previous night. "I have made a decision," my father finally announced, folding his newspaper with deliberate precision. "Isaac, you have until Amanda arrives tomorrow to clear your things out of the bedroom. You can set up a temporary sleeping space in the basement. We will put down some waterproof matting in case it rains." I looked up from my coffee. "The basement ceiling leaks in 3 different places when it rains, Dad. My computer equipment would be at risk." "Then figure something else out," he said dismissively. "The garage, the living room, sofa, whatever works. But that room needs to be ready for Lily by tomorrow afternoon." My mother placed a plate of scrambled eggs in front of me. "I will help you move your things," she offered, as if that solved the problem. "And where exactly am I supposed to work?" I asked. "I have video calls with clients. I cannot do those from the living room with people walking through constantly." You will figure it out, my father said, his tone making it clear the discussion was over. Lots of people work from coffee shops these days. For a few hours maybe, not for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. My father's face reddened again. This conversation is over, Isaac. Amanda and Lily arrive tomorrow. That room will be ready for them. He stood up, leaving his half-eaten breakfast, and walked out. My mother gave me an apologetic look, but said nothing more, beginning to clear the dishes. I retreated to my room, soon to be not my room, and tried to focus on work. I had an important video call with my team at 10, followed by a client presentation at 2. The project we were working on was crucial, a potential stepping stone to the promotion I had been hoping for. The morning call was interrupted 3 times, once by my mother, asking if I wanted coffee, once by my father loudly talking on the phone right outside my door, and once by my mother again, this time with questions about what items in the room were mine versus what could stay for Lily. Mom, I'm in the middle of a work call, I whispered urgently, muting my microphone temporarily. I just need to know if these books can be moved, she persisted, gesturing to my programming references. Yes, fine, whatever. I need to get back to my meeting. She lingered, looking at other items in the room, until I had to physically close the door to return to my call. My team noticed my distraction, with my manager Ryan asking if everything was okay. Just some family stuff, I explained vaguely. My apartment flooded, so I am staying with my parents temporarily. Sounds stressful, Ryan commented. Let me know if you need any accommodations. Actually, I said, making a split-second decision, I might need to work from a coffee shop for a few days next week. There will be family visiting, and space will be tight. Ryan frowned. That might be difficult with the client presentations coming up. Can you find a quieter alternative? Maybe a library or co-working space? I will figure something out, I promised, feeling the pressure mounting. The nearest co-working space was a 30-minute drive away and required monthly membership. The library had limited hours and spotty Wi-Fi. None of these were good options for the intensive work period ahead. After the call, I found Amanda had texted me. Mom says, you are making a fuss about the room. Seriously, Isaac, Lily is 9 years old. Stop being selfish. I stared at the text, anger bubbling up again. Without responding to Amanda, I started researching hotels in the area, calculating costs against my savings. Even the cheapest options would set me back thousands for a month-long stay. Money I had been saving for a down payment on my own place eventually. Around noon, I heard noises from the hallway. Stepping out, I found my mother and father moving items into my room. A small pink suitcase, a stuffed unicorn, some children's books. What are you doing? I asked, incredulous. They do not arrive until tomorrow. We are just getting things ready, my mother explained. Amanda texted some photos of items Lily would like in the room. I have not even moved my things out yet, I protested. I have another work call this afternoon. You can do your call from the dining room, my father said. We need to get this room ready. So my work calls are less important than arranging stuffed animals, I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. My father turned to face me fully. One more word of this attitude, and you can find somewhere else to stay entirely. Under my roof, my rules. The phrase under my roof hit a nerve. It was his go-to line throughout my childhood and teenage years, the trump card that ended all discussions. As an adult being forced back home by circumstance, it felt particularly infantilizing. I retreated to my room, closing the door firmly, and tried to prepare for my afternoon client call. Concentration was nearly impossible with the sounds of my parents moving things around in the hallway, their muffled conversation occasionally featuring my name. At one point, I heard a knock and opened the door to find my mother holding a plastic storage bin. I thought you could put your personal items in here, she suggested. We can store it in the attic until Amanda and Lily leave. The attic, where forgotten things went. The symbolism was not lost on me. I need my work materials accessible, I said, taking the bin, but placing it aside, and I have nowhere to set up properly. The dining room table is in the middle of the house with people walking through constantly, no privacy for calls, and nowhere to leave my equipment set up overnight. I finished. It is not a viable workspace, Mom. She sighed, that familiar look of disappointment crossing her face. You always make things so difficult, Isaac. Amanda never complains like this when accommodations need to be made. Amanda never has to make accommodations, I pointed out. That is the whole problem. My mother left without responding, and I closed the door again, leaning against it as frustration threatened to overwhelm me. I had a client call in less than an hour, no suitable place to take it, and a family who seemed oblivious to my professional needs. My phone rang, my boss calling directly, which rarely happened. Isaac Ryan began without preamble. The client has moved up the timeline on the presentation. They want to see what we have tomorrow instead of next week. My stomach dropped. Tomorrow. But I am not ready. The wireframes need refinement and the documentation. Everyone's in the same boat, Ryan interrupted. We all need to pull together on this. The whole team will be on a call at 9 a.m. sharp tomorrow, and the client presentation is at 2 p.m. I need you focused and ready. Ryan, I hesitated, not wanting to make excuses, but seeing the disaster looming. My family situation is complicated right now. I may not have a proper workspace tomorrow. There was a pause, then Ryan's voice came through noticeably cooler. Isaac, this project is crucial for the company. I understand personal circumstances arise, but I need to know if you can deliver. If not, I need to reassign your portions immediately. The implied threat was clear. This project was linked to my potential promotion. Being removed from it would be a significant career setback. I will make it work, I promised, not knowing how. After hanging up, I sat on my bed, head in my hands. The situation was reaching a breaking point. Professional obligations colliding with family expectations, neither side willing to bend. A soft knock on my door revealed my niece's artwork had already been taped to it. Colorful drawings of unicorns and rainbows, marking the territory as hers before she even arrived. When I opened it, my father stood there, holding a sleeping bag. For the basement, he said, holding it out. Your mother put some foam padding down there too. I did not take the sleeping bag. Dad, I have critical work presentations tomorrow. I need a proper workspace with privacy. The basement is damp, has poor lighting, and the Wi-Fi barely reaches down there. Figure it out, he repeated his earlier dismissal. When I was your age, I worked 3 jobs and never complained about conditions. It was an old refrain, one I had heard countless times. My father had indeed worked hard throughout his life, something he never let anyone forget. But the comparison was apples to oranges. His manual labor jobs had different requirements than my technology-centered career. This is not about being unwilling to work hard, I tried explaining. It is about needing specific conditions to do my job effectively. Would you have been able to fix cars without a garage and tools? Do not get smart with me, he warned. This attitude of yours is exactly why we are in this situation. Always thinking you deserve special treatment. The irony of this statement, given the special treatment Amanda had received our entire lives, was almost laughable. Almost. It is not special treatment to need a desk and quiet space for work calls. I said, struggling to keep my voice level. It is a basic professional requirement. Well, professionals also pay their own rent, he shot back. Until you are doing that again, you will adapt to what we can offer. He dropped the sleeping bag at my feet and walked away, conversation over in his mind. I checked my watch. 45 minutes until my client call. With no better option, I gathered my laptop notes and headphones and drove to the nearest cafe with Wi-Fi. It was crowded, noisy, and the internet connection dropped twice during the call, but I managed to get through it without major issues. By the time I returned home that evening, more of Lily's things had appeared in my room. My clothes had been moved to a corner, and my desk had been partially cleared to make space for a child-sized vanity table. Amanda sent it ahead by courier, my mother explained, when I questioned the new furniture. Is not it, darling? Lily has been wanting a vanity just like it. I stared at the pink plastic monstrosity, now occupying the space where my secondary monitor had been. Where is my computer monitor? I asked. In the storage bin in the corner, she replied. We figured you would not need 2 screens if you are working elsewhere. The presumption was staggering. Without bothering to respond, I retrieved my monitor and set it back up. I had a mountain of work to complete before tomorrow's presentations and no intention of doing it from a cafe again. As I worked late into the night, I heard my parents discussing me from the hallway, their whispers easily audible through the thin walls. "He is being ridiculous about this whole thing," my father was saying. "One night in the basement will not kill him." "Robert, the basement does get very damp," my mother countered. "Maybe he could sleep on the pull-out couch in the living room instead. And have him complaining about people walking through his bedroom all day? No thank you." "Well, your father is coming tomorrow. Maybe we should wait until after his visit to move Isaac's things." "Dad has nothing to do with this," my father insisted. "This is our house and our decision." I put on headphones to block out their voices, focusing on my work instead. Tomorrow would bring not only critical work presentations, but also Amanda and Lily's arrival, and Grandpa Walter's visit. Something had to give, and soon. The next day was chaotic from the start. I woke early, skipped breakfast, to avoid another confrontation, and set up my workspace in my room for the 9 a.m. team call. My parents were busy preparing for Amanda and Lily's arrival, cleaning, cooking, rearranging furniture in other parts of the house. The morning team call went surprisingly well considering the circumstances. I had worked until 2 a.m., completing my portion of the presentation, and the team was satisfied with the results. Now I just needed to make it through the actual client presentation at 2 p.m. Around noon I heard a car pull into the driveway. Looking out the window I saw Amanda's silver SUV. My stomach tightened. They were early. Excited voices filled the house as Amanda and Lily were welcomed with hugs, exclamations over how much Lily had grown, and questions about their drive. I remained in my room mentally preparing for the conflict I knew was coming. A knock at my door was followed by my mother's voice. "Isaac, Amanda, and Lily are here. Come say hello." Taking a deep breath, I saved my work and went to greet them. Amanda stood in the living room, looking polished as always in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater. Beside her, Lily had grown, since I last saw her now, a lanky 9-year-old with her mother's blonde hair and confident posture. Uncle Isaac Lily ran to hug me, genuinely excited. Despite the tension with her mother, I had always made an effort to be a good uncle to Lily. She was, after all, innocent in the adult conflicts. "Hey, Squirt," I said, returning her hug. "You have gotten taller." 3 inches since Christmas, she announced proudly. Mom measured. Amanda approached, giving me a brief, stiff hug. "Isaac, how is the flooded apartment?" "Still being repaired," I replied neutrally. "Insurance is covering the hotel for the first 2 weeks, but it will be about a month total before I can move back in." A flicker of something, annoyance, concern, crossed Amanda's face. "A month, Mom said it would just be a couple of weeks." The timeline got extended. Water damage to the electrical systems was worse than they thought. My mother interjected quickly. "Well, we are just glad to have everyone here. Lunch is almost ready." As we moved toward the dining room, Lily tugged at my hand. "Mom says I get to stay in your old room. She says it has blue walls, like my room at home." I forced a smile. "That is right. Blue walls." "Where will you sleep, Uncle Isaac?" she asked innocently. Before I could answer, my father cut in. "Isaac will be staying in the basement while you are here. It will be like camping." Lily's eyes widened. "Can I camp in the basement too?" "No, sweetie," Amanda said quickly. "You need a proper bed. Uncle Isaac does not mind the basement, do you, Isaac?" All eyes turned to me. I could feel my father's warning, glare, my mother's pleading look, Amanda's expectant stare. Only Lily looked genuinely curious, unaware of the tension. "Actually," I began carefully, "I have a very important work presentation this afternoon. I need to prepare for it." At the dining table, my father said firmly, "Your old room needs to be ready for Lily to settle in for her nap after lunch." 9-year-olds taking naps was news to me, but I let it slide. "Dad, I need privacy for this call. It is with an important client." "Cannot you go to a coffee shop?" Amanda suggested, as if it were the most reasonable solution in the world. "That is what I do when I need to work during family visits." "This is not just answering emails," I explained, trying to keep frustration from my voice. "It is a formal presentation that could affect my promotion chances." "Surely they would understand family circumstances," my mother offered. "That is not how corporate America works, Mom," I replied. "They care about results, not excuses." The conversation was interrupted by the doorbell. My mother went to answer it, returning moments later with Grandpa Walter. "Look who is here," she announced, a hint of nervousness in her voice. Grandpa Walter entered the dining room, still tall and imposing at 78. His silver hair was neatly combed, his posture military, straight, and remnants of his army days. Despite his age, he moved with purpose and clarity. "There is my family," he boomed, arms wide. "Amanda, beautiful as always. And this cannot be little Lily. You have grown a foot since I last saw you." Lily giggled as he swept her into a hug. He then greeted my father with a firm handshake and me with a warm embrace. "Isaac, good to see you, son. How is that computer job of yours going?" "It is going well, Grandpa," I replied, noting how he always remembered what I did, despite his limited understanding of technology. "Actually, I have an important presentation this afternoon." "Is that right? Well, we will not keep you from your preparations then." My mother, clearly trying to direct the conversation away from potential conflict, announced lunch was ready. We all sat down to eat with Grandpa Walter, asking general questions about everyone's lives, work, and activities. He was skilled at getting people to talk, a trait that had served him well in his career as a high school principal. About halfway through the meal, he casually asked, "So, what are the sleeping arrangements with a full house?" "Amanda and Lily, in Amanda's old room." There was an awkward pause. My mother glanced at my father, who cleared his throat. "Actually, Dad, Lily will be taking Isaac's room. She needs her own space, and Amanda will be in her old room." "I see," Grandpa Walter said thoughtfully. "And where will Isaac be sleeping?" "The basement," my father replied, "just temporarily." "The basement?" Grandpa Walter raised his eyebrows. "The one that floods when it rains, the one with the water stain on the ceiling, and the musty smell." "We have put down waterproof matting," my mother interjected quickly. "And a dehumidifier." Grandpa Walter turned to me. "And you are okay with this arrangement, Isaac?" All eyes at the table turned to me again. I could lie, smooth things over, avoid conflict. It would be easier. But something in my grandfather's direct gaze gave me courage. "No," I said simply. "I am not okay with it. I need my workspace for my job. I have an important presentation in 2 hours that could affect my promotion. But apparently, that does not matter as much as Lily having her own room for a nap." "Isaac," my mother exclaimed, shocked at my honesty. "Well?" he asked, I replied. Grandpa Walter nodded slowly, taking this in. "Robert," he addressed, "my father, is there no other solution? The boy needs to work." "He can work from the dining table," my father insisted. "Or a coffee shop. Plenty of people do." "And where would he sleep? The basement is hardly suitable." "He could sleep on the living room pull-out," my mother suggested. "We just need his room for Lily during their stay." Grandpa Walter turned to Amanda. "And Lily could not stay in your room with you. When you were her age, you often slept in your mother's room during visits to my house." Amanda shifted uncomfortably. "That was different. Lily needs her routine, her own space. She has trouble sleeping in new environments." "I see," Grandpa Walter said again, his tone neutral, but his eyes sharp. "So everyone needs their space, except Isaac." The table fell silent. My father looked like he wanted to object but held his tongue. One of the few people he still showed deference to was his own father. "It is just for 2 weeks," my mother repeated the now familiar refrain. "Family makes sacrifices." "Indeed they do," Grandpa Walter agreed. "Which is why I am curious why the sacrifices always seem to fall on Isaac's shoulders." No one had a response to that. Lily, sensing the tension, asked innocently, "Am I causing problems?" "Not at all, sweetheart," Amanda assured her quickly. "The grown-ups are just figuring things out." "May I be excused?" I asked, checking my watch. "I need to prepare for my presentation." "Of course," my mother replied, seemingly relieved at the potential break in tension. I stood to leave, but Grandpa Walter's voice stopped me. "Before you go, Isaac, I have a question for everyone at this table." Something in his tone made everyone pay attention. "I want each of you to think back," he continued. "When was the last time Amanda was asked to sacrifice something for Isaac's benefit?" The silence that followed was deafening. My father stared at his plate. My mother fidgeted with her napkin. Amanda looked uncomfortable. "I cannot recall a single instance," Grandpa Walter continued, "when no one answered. Not one. But I can recall dozens of times Isaac has been expected to step aside, give up, make do. Dad, this is hardly the time my father began. It is exactly the time Robert Grandpa Walter cut him off. Because this pattern has been going on since these children were small, and it is time someone named it for what it is: favoritism. The word hung in the air, like an accusation. My mother gasped softly. That is not true, she protested. We love both our children equally. Love and treatment are different things, Patricia. Grandpa Walter replied gently. And I have watched for years as Isaac received less consideration, less celebration, less accommodation than his sister. I have worked hard for everything I have, Amanda interjected, her voice defensive. No one is saying you have not, Grandpa Walter assured her. But so has Isaac. Yet when you both need something, you are prioritized every time. That is enough, my father said firmly. We do not need parenting advice at this stage of our lives. Apparently you do, Grandpa, Walter replied, his voice equally firm. Because you are about to make your son sleep in a damp basement and work from a dining table during a critical professional moment. Also, your granddaughter can have a blue bedroom for her nap instead of sharing with her mother. He turned to Lily, his voice softening. Lily, do you love your mother? Lily nodded, confused by the question. Of course I do. And would you be okay sleeping in the same room as her for 2 weeks if it meant Uncle Isaac could keep his job? Lily's eyes widened. Uncle Isaac might lose his job. No, sweetie, Amanda interjected quickly. Grandpa is exaggerating. Am I? Grandpa Walter challenged. Isaac, what happens if you miss this presentation or perform poorly on it? Best case, I miss out on the promotion I have been working toward for months, I answered honestly. Worst case, if the client is unhappy enough, I could be put on performance review or even let go if they pull their business. Lily looked concerned. I do not want Uncle Isaac to lose his job. I can sleep with Mom. We have sleepovers sometimes at home anyway. Out of the mouths of babes. The simple logical solution that the adults had been too stubborn to consider was immediately obvious to a 9-year-old. The table fell silent again. My father looked like he had swallowed something sour. My mother appeared on the verge of tears. Amanda stared at her plate. I think Grandpa Walter said into the silence that we have a volunteer solution to our problem. Amanda and Lily can share Amanda's room, and Isaac can continue to use his room for sleeping and working. Problem solved. But my father began. Unless Grandpa Walter continued, there is some other reason why Isaac should be displaced that has nothing to do with Lily's needs and everything to do with old patterns of favoritism. My father's mouth snapped shut. For perhaps the first time in my adult life, I saw him truly speechless. I need to prepare for my presentation, I said again, standing up. This time no one stopped me. As I left the dining room, I heard Grandpa Walter continue. Now let us talk about how we are going to make this a pleasant 2-week visit for everyone, with consideration for all family members' needs. I closed my bedroom door, took a deep breath, and turned to my computer. For the first time since this conflict began, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Someone had finally spoken the truth that had shaped my entire life. Someone had finally stood up for me. I had a presentation to nail. After my presentation, which went exceptionally well despite the family drama, I emerged from my room to find a transformed atmosphere in the house. The tension remained, but it had shifted from active conflict to thoughtful reflection. In the living room, I found Grandpa Walter and my father engaged in quiet conversation. They fell silent when I entered, but my father's expression was different, less defensive, more contemplative. How did your work thing go? He asked, making an effort I rarely saw from him. It went well, I replied. The client was impressed with our proposal. Good, he nodded. That is good. Grandpa Walter smiled. I knew you would knock it out of the park, son. My mother appeared from the kitchen, her eyes slightly red, as if she had been crying. Isaac, I have made up the guest room for Amanda and Lily. Amanda is helping Lily move her things there now. I blinked in surprise. The guest room was actually my parents' room. They had converted it years ago when all the kids moved out, taking the larger master bedroom for themselves. Your room, where will you and Dad sleep? We will take Michael's old room, she said, with a small smile. It is only for 2 weeks, after all. The irony of her using the same phrase that had been wielded against me was not lost on anyone in the room, but there was no bitterness in her tone, only a newfound understanding. "You do not have to do that," I said, genuinely surprised by this development. Amanda and Lily could share her old room, as Grandpa suggested. "No," my father interjected. "Your mother and I have discussed it. You need your workspace, and Amanda and Lily deserve comfortable accommodations too. This is the best solution for everyone." I was speechless. Never in my life had I heard my father admit to reconsidering a decision once it was made. Grandpa Walter's eyes twinkled with satisfaction. Sometimes it takes an outside perspective to see patterns we are too close to notice. From upstairs came the sound of footsteps, and Lily's voice excitedly discussing the sleepover with her mom in Grandma and Grandpa's room. Despite the awkwardness of the situation, it seemed Lily at least was thrilled with the new arrangement. Amanda appeared in the living room doorway, her expression a complex mix of emotions. "Lily is setting up her stuffed animals," she explained. "She is actually excited about sharing a room. Says it is like vacation." "Kids are adaptable," Grandpa Walter noted. "More so than adults sometimes." Amanda nodded, then turned to me. "Isaac, I owe you an apology. I did not consider how important your work situation is right now. I just assumed. Well, I assumed what I have always assumed. That my needs were secondary. I finished for her." She winced but nodded. "Yes. And that was unfair." It was perhaps the first time in our adult lives that Amanda had acknowledged the imbalance in how we were treated. The admission did not immediately heal decades of disparity, but it was a start. "Thank you," I said simply. My father cleared his throat. "While we are at it, I also owe you an apology, son." The garage comment was out of line. Way out of line. It was I agreed, not making it easier for him. This moment of accountability had been too long coming for me to smooth it over with platitudes. He nodded, accepting this. "Your grandfather reminded me of some things from my own childhood. Things I had forgotten." Grandpa Walter spoke up. "I reminded your father how his older sister was often favored by my own parents, his grandparents. How he came home crying more than once because his achievements were overlooked while hers were celebrated." My father looked down, a vulnerability I rarely saw in him showing through. I hated it. Feeling less than. Unimportant. "And yet you recreated the same dynamic with your own children." Grandpa Walter said, not unkindly. "We often repeat patterns without realizing it." "I did not see it," my father admitted, "or did not want to." My mother wiped away a tear. "None of us did. We just thought Amanda needed more attention, more help. And you seemed so self-sufficient, Isaac." "I became self-sufficient because I had to be," I pointed out. "Because I learned early that my needs would not be prioritized." She nodded, the truth of this hitting home. "I am so sorry, sweetheart." The conversation was interrupted by Lily, bounding down the stairs. "Mom? The bed in Grandma's room is super bouncy." She skidded to a stop when she saw all of us gathered in the living room, looking serious. "Are you guys still fighting?" "No, sweetheart," Amanda assured her. "We are just having an important family discussion." "About what?" The adults exchanged glances, unsure how to explain complex family dynamics to a 9-year-old. "About how sometimes families do not always treat everyone fairly," Grandpa Walter explained simply. "And how important it is to make sure everyone feels valued and respected." Lily considered this, then nodded sagely. "Like when Kylie's mom always takes her side in arguments, even when Kylie is wrong." Out of the mouths of babes again. "Exactly like that," I confirmed. "That is dumb," Lily declared. "Parents should be fair." "Yes, they should," Grandpa Walter agreed, giving my parents a pointed look. "And grandparents too." "Well, I am glad Uncle Isaac gets to keep his room," Lily announced. "I like our room better anyway. It has a television and Grandma's fancy lotions." Her innocent enthusiasm lightened the mood, allowing a natural conclusion to what had been an intense family reckoning. As she pulled Amanda away to show her something upstairs, the rest of us sat in thoughtful silence. "This does not fix everything," I finally said. "These patterns run deep." "No, it does not fix everything," Grandpa Walter agreed. "But acknowledging a problem is the first step to solving it." My father nodded slowly. I want to do better, son. I really do. Coming from my father, a man who rarely admitted weakness or fault, these words carried significant weight. That means a lot, Dad, I replied honestly. As the evening progressed, a new atmosphere settled over the house. Not perfect harmony. Too many years of ingrained patterns could not be erased in a day, but a cautious new awareness, a careful consideration that had been missing before. At dinner, my father asked detailed questions about my work presentation and listened with genuine interest to my answers. My mother made sure I was served first, a small gesture but one that spoke volumes. Amanda shared stories about Lily's school activities without the usual competitive edge, even acknowledging that her daughter was a bit spoiled sometimes. Grandpa Walter observed it all with quiet satisfaction, occasionally guiding the conversation when old patterns threatened to emerge. His presence was like a compass helping the family navigate toward healthier interactions. After dinner, as everyone was helping clear the table, my father approached me privately. "Your grandfather told me something I have been thinking about all afternoon," he said quietly. "He asked me what kind of relationship I wanted with you when I am his age. If I wanted you to visit out of obligation or genuine desire." The question hung between us, profound in its simplicity. "I want you in my life, because you want to be here," he continued. "Not because you feel you have to be. And I realize now that the way we have treated you, well, it does not inspire much desire to be around us." "It has been hard," I admitted, always feeling like the odd one out. He nodded, accepting this truth. "I cannot change the past, but I can try to do better going forward, if you will give me the chance." It was not a dramatic Hollywood moment of complete reconciliation. It was something more real, more tentative, but perhaps more meaningful, the beginning of a potential new chapter in our relationship. "I would like that," I said, simply. As I headed back to my room later that evening, Grandpa Walter caught up with me in the hallway. "You handled yourself well today," he said, "standing your ground without burning bridges." "I had a good example," I replied, nodding to him. He smiled. "You know, I went through something similar with my own father and brother. Family patterns are stubborn things, but they can be changed with enough awareness and effort." "Do you think they will really change?" I asked, the doubt I still felt evident in my voice. "I think they want to," he answered honestly. "Whether they can sustain it remains to be seen, but naming the problem was necessary before any change could begin." He patted my shoulder. "Get some rest. Tomorrow will be a new day, with its own challenges and opportunities." As I prepared for bed that night, I reflected on the extraordinary turn of events. In the span of 24 hours, a long-standing family dynamic had been named challenged and begun to shift. All because someone had finally been willing to speak the uncomfortable truth. The next 2 weeks would test whether this shift was temporary or the beginning of real change. But for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen by my family. And that in itself was a significant step forward. The remaining days of Amanda and Lily's visit unfolded with a new awareness in the household. It was not perfect. Old habits occasionally surfaced quickly, followed by awkward corrections. But the effort was consistent and genuine. My parents kept their word about the sleeping arrangements remaining in Michael's old room despite occasional comments about the smaller bed. Amanda and Lily settled into the master bedroom, with Lily declaring it the best sleepover ever nearly every morning at breakfast. I maintained my workspace in my room, able to focus on my projects without interruption. The promotion I had been working toward was officially announced 3 days after the big presentation. A validation of my professional efforts that my family acknowledged with genuine celebration. "We should go out to dinner to celebrate," my father suggested. "Your choice of restaurant, Isaac." Such a simple gesture, yet so meaningful in its rarity. Typically, restaurant choices rotated between my father's preference for steakhouses and Amanda's fondness for Italian. My preference for Thai food had always been overlooked. "Thai Palace." I suggested, waiting for the subtle redirection that usually followed. "Perfect," my father said instead. "I will make reservations for tomorrow night." Small moments like these accumulated throughout the visit. My mother asking about my preferences before planning meals. My father inquiring about my work without immediately pivoting to Amanda's accomplishments. Amanda herself showing interest in my coding projects, even asking for advice on a website issue her marketing team was facing. Lily, unburdened by the history of family dynamics, flourished in the new atmosphere. She spent time with each family member, including special uncle time, where she asked endless questions about computers and coding. I showed her simple programming basics, creating a game where she could design characters, an activity that revealed her creative aptitude. She is really good at this, I mentioned to Amanda after one such session. She has a natural eye for design. Amanda watched her daughter proudly. She talks about you all the time at home, you know. Uncle Isaac builds things with computers. She thinks you are basically a wizard. I had no idea, I admitted, touched by this revelation. I have not always made it easy for you two to connect, Amanda acknowledged. I think I was jealous in a way. Jealous? Of what? She sighed. Of how easily you have always handled things. How you knew what you wanted to do from an early age while I bounced between interests. How you built your career step by step while I relied on mom and dad's connections for my first jobs. This perspective was so contrary to my experience that I could only stare at her in surprise. You thought I had it easy, I finally managed. Didn't you? You never seemed to need anything from anyone. You just figured it out. I shook my head slowly. I figured it out because I had to. Because asking for help usually meant being told to wait until your needs were addressed first. Amanda was quiet for a moment, absorbing this. I never saw it that way. I just saw mom and dad helping me, and assumed you did not need the same help. I needed it, I said simply. I just stopped asking. This conversation marked a turning point in my relationship with Amanda. For the first time, we were seeing each other clearly, not through the distorted lens of childhood competition and parental favoritism, but as adults with different experiences of the same family. One evening, about a week into their visit, Grandpa Walter invited me for a walk around the neighborhood. As we strolled past familiar houses and gardens, he shared stories I had never heard. About my father's childhood, his own parenting mistakes, the patterns he had worked to break in his own life. Your father was very much like you as a boy, he revealed. Quiet, thoughtful, interested in how things worked. But my father, your great-grandfather, valued athletics and outgoing personalities. He never quite understood your father. So Dad changed to fit what his father wanted, I asked. Grandpa Walter nodded. To some extent, and then he married your mother, whose family similarly valued the traits Amanda naturally possessed: sociability, verbal expression, leadership. Without realizing it, they recreated the environment that had hurt your father as a child. Why are you telling me this? Because understanding does not excuse, but it helps with forgiveness, he replied. And because I want you to be aware of these patterns so you do not unconsciously repeat them in your own life. He stopped walking, turning to face me directly. The real test will come after Amanda and Lily leave, after I go home. When the daily reminder of these patterns is not staring everyone in the face. You think they will revert back, I said. It was not a question. I think change is hard, he corrected, and awareness comes in waves. There will be backsliding. The question is whether you can address it directly when it happens, and whether they can hear you when you do. His wisdom struck me deeply. This was not about a single dramatic confrontation that magically fixed decades of family dynamics. It was about beginning a new pattern of communication awareness and mutual respect that would require ongoing effort from everyone. How do I do that? Without seeming bitter or dwelling on the past, I asked. By focusing on the present moment, he advised. Not you always do this, but right now this is happening, and it is not working for me. Specific, current, factual. We continued our walk, discussing strategies for maintaining healthy boundaries, while allowing for the messy, imperfect process of family growth. By the time we returned to the house, I felt equipped with both perspective and practical approaches for the road ahead. The final days of Amanda and Lily's visit had a bittersweet quality. The family had experienced a significant shift, but uncertainties remained about what would happen when things returned to normal. The evening before their departure, we gathered for a family game night, something we had not done since I was a teenager. As we played board games and shared stories, I observed the changed dynamics with cautious optimism. My father, typically competitive to a fault, made space for others to shine. My mother distributed her attention more evenly among family members. Amanda acknowledged when she was being overly dramatic about game setbacks, and I found myself more willing to speak up when something bothered me, trusting that I would be heard. Lily, watching the adults navigate this new territory, absorbed important lessons about fairness, communication, and respect. Our family is getting better at talking, she observed with a child's simple insight. At school, we call that using our words, instead of our grumpy faces. We all laughed at her assessment, recognizing the truth in it. After Lily went to bed, the adults sat in the living room with coffee and dessert. Grandpa Walter, who would also be leaving the next day, raised his mug in a toast. To growth, he said, simply, and to the courage it takes to face uncomfortable truths. We clinked mugs, the moment holding more significance than words could express. Later, as I prepared for bed, Amanda knocked on my door. When I opened it, she held out a small package. "What is this?" I asked, taking it. "Just a thank you," she said, "for being so good with Lily, and for, for not giving up on us as a family, even when you had every reason to." Inside the package was a framed photo of Lily and me, from earlier in the week, heads bent together over the computer, as I showed her how to code her game. Our expressions were identical, focused concentration with slight smiles of discovery. "Thank you," I said, genuinely moved by the gesture. "This means a lot." "I want her to know you better," Amanda said. "Maybe she could visit you in the city sometimes. When your apartment is fixed, of course." The offer of a relationship with Lily, independent of the whole family dynamics, was perhaps the most meaningful gift Amanda could have given me. I would really like that. The next morning brought the inevitable goodbyes. Suitcases were loaded, hugs, exchanged promises made to call and visit more often. As Amanda's car pulled away with Lily waving frantically from the back window, I felt a mix of emotions. Hope for the new understanding we had begun to build, uncertainty about whether it would last, and a quiet pride in having finally stood my ground. Grandpa Walter departed soon after, but not before having a final private word with me. "Remember what we talked about," he said, embracing me warmly. "Change takes time and consistent effort. Be patient, but firm, and know that you are worthy of respect and consideration regardless of old family patterns." "Thank you, Grandpa," I said, meaning it more deeply than I could express, "for everything." After he left, the house felt strangely quiet. My parents moved back into their master bedroom, and I continued working from my room, the crisis of displacement now resolved. That evening, my father knocked on my door. "Got a minute?" he asked. I invited him in, and he sat awkwardly on the edge of my bed. "Your grandfather called to let us know he got home safely," he began. "He also said something I wanted to discuss with you." I waited, curious. "He said that real change requires ongoing awareness and effort, that we might fall back into old patterns without realizing it." My father looked uncomfortable, but determined. "I want you to know that if that happens, when that happens, you have my permission to call it out, directly. I may not like hearing it in the moment, but I need to hear it." Coming from my father, a man who had spent my entire life believing he was always right, this was a monumental shift. "I appreciate that, Dad," I said carefully. "And I will try to do it respectfully." He nodded. "That is all I ask." After a moment, he added, "I am proud of you, son, of the man you have become. I do not say it enough, but I am." Simple words, yet they filled a void I had carried for years. As the days passed, and I prepared to return to my now repaired apartment, I reflected on the unexpected journey this flooding had initiated. What had begun as a housing crisis had evolved into a family reckoning and ultimately the beginning of healing. The patterns of a lifetime would not change overnight. There would be missteps, regressions, difficult conversations ahead. But something fundamental had shifted. A truth had been named. A commitment to change had been made. And I had found my voice within the family. As I packed my belongings, preparing to return to my independent life, I knew I would be bringing something new with me. Not just the hope for healthier family relationships, but a deeper understanding of how patterns perpetuate across generations, and how they can be broken with courage, awareness, and determination. The next time I visited my parents, it would not be out of obligation or necessity, but by choice, The choice to engage in the messy, imperfect, worthwhile process of building a family relationship based on mutual respect rather than old hierarchies of favoritism. And that perhaps was the most valuable lesson my grandfather had taught us all. Sometimes, it takes an outsider's perspective to illuminate long-standing patterns. Sometimes it takes a moment of crisis to create opportunity for change. And sometimes, standing up for yourself does not mean losing family, but rather inviting them into a new, more authentic relationship. Have you ever had to stand up to your family about unfair treatment? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. And remember, setting boundaries with family is not about creating distance, but building healthier connections based on mutual respect. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps anyone dealing with similar family dynamics.